welcome to another episode of Sabbath School for Kids, brought to you by Baraton TV, here and hereafter. This week we'll be looking at lesson number 2 for the beginners and lesson number 9 for the other lesson classes. So go and grab your lessons, your Bibles and notebooks, and be right back. For the beginner class, we've been looking at Noah's big boat, and this is the last time we'll be looking at the story. And our memory verse has been Psalm 98 verse 1, which says, I will sing about the Lord's love. Let's do it one more time. I will sing about the Lord's love. We've seen how Noah was very good friends with God, and they used to speak to each other a lot. And on one occasion, God told Noah that he was going to destroy the world with a very big flood, because all the people were not following his instructions. They were busy doing bad things like stealing and hurting each other, and they weren't following God's commands. So God was very sad with the people and decided he was going to clean everything by bringing a very big flood that would cover everything. So he told Noah, because he was a good man and he and his family followed God's instructions, that he should build a boat so that he can save himself, his family, and some of the animals. And Noah was obedient. He followed God's instructions and built a very big boat like this one. It had a downstairs, an upstairs, and another upstairs. And when Noah had finished building his boat with the help of his sons, God sent the animals 2 by 2 to come and enter the ark. And when all the animals had gone in and Noah and his family had gone in, God sent an angel to close the door of the ark like that. Okay, and after the door was closed, they waited for a few days, but eventually it rained, and it rained and rained and rained for 40 days. That's almost a whole month. And it rained all day and all night until everything was covered. All the hills were covered, all the trees were covered, all the mountains were covered. You couldn't see anything but water. And after the 40 days, it stopped raining. But even if it had stopped raining, everywhere was still covered with water. So Noah and his family had to wait for a while for the water to go down and see if they'll be able to come out. And they waited and they waited and they got tired of waiting. But one day, Noah sent out a bird to see if the water was dry. But the bird didn't come back. That was a raven. After some time, Noah sent out another bird. And the bird went, flew around, didn't find anywhere to stay, and it came back. He sent the bird out again. It went, flew around. This time it came with a small piece of a tree. And Noah knew that the water was almost gone. And the third time Noah sent out the dove, it went and didn't come back. And the water kept subsiding until the ark rested on top of a mountain called Mount Ararat. And when it stopped on top of the mountain, God sent the angel again to come and open the door so that all the animals and Noah and his family could come out. And when Noah and his family came out, they were so thankful to God for taking care of them through all that they had experienced, that they got together, they made a sacrifice, and they prayed to God and thanked him. And God was very, very happy that Noah had remembered to say thank you, that he put a rainbow in the sky, like this one. Okay, he put a rainbow in the sky as a sign that he would never again destroy the world with water. And the Bible tells us, or the song tells us, that when we see the rainbow, we should remember about the promise that God made that he will never again destroy the world. And we should always thank God for the good care he takes for us. He's always taking care of us, whether it's during the day or at night, when we go to school, when we're playing at home with our friends. He's always taking care of us. He's always taking care of our family members also. And we should always remember to thank him for all the good things that he does for us. In the kindergarten class, our story for this week is entitled Abram Follows God. And our key text is 1 Corinthians chapter 14 verse 1, and it says, follow the way of love. Let's do it again. Follow the way of love. Now, the person in our story this week is Abraham, and Abraham had a wife called Sarah. And one day Abraham was walking around his compound and he heard a voice calling to him. And he was wondering, who is this talking to me? And the voice spoke to him and said, Abraham, I want you to pack your things get your family and move to a land that I will tell you. I know many of us have moved around. Maybe you've moved from one house to another, or you moved from one city to another city. It's not easy to move, and it's not always very pleasant because you have to change a lot of things. You say goodbye to your friends and all the familiar places that you know. But Abraham had to do that. He followed God's instructions and he packed all his things. He gathered all his servants. Sarah also gathered all her servants. They packed all their stuff. They also prepared tents for their travel. They also had to gather up all their animals, their sheep, their goats, their camels, and all the chickens and everything that they had so they could get ready to leave. And while Abraham was packing all his things, his nephew, Lot, also decided that he was going to go with them. And Lot also packed all his things so that he could follow his uncle Abraham. And they kept packing and packing and packing, and eventually everything was ready. All the carts were packed, all the donkeys had their bags to carry, all the horses had their bags to carry, and everyone was ready to move. And it was very surprising that even though Abraham had agreed to go to this place that he didn't know and the place that God was going to show him, he didn't exactly know where he was going. He was just following God because he trusted that God would lead him in the right direction. What we're learning from this story is that Christian families always follow God. We follow God in the instructions he gives us in the Bible, and sometimes we also follow God when he tells us to move from one place to another to go and do something for him. Many times our parents are called to go and work in other places, and we may not exactly be happy about it, but maybe it's something that God is calling us to do. So we need to follow what God is telling us to do and also follow him when he calls us. The primary lesson for this week is entitled Streams of Blessings. And our key text is from John 7 verse 37, which says, "Let anyone who is thirsty come to me and drink." We've been looking at the story of Moses from the time he was born to how he came back to free the Israelites. And last week we saw how the Israelites were eventually freed and how the angel of death came, and that was the last plague, and Pharaoh eventually said yes and the Israelites could leave. So the Israelites were set free. They packed all their things and they left. And when they left Egypt, God provided a way for them through the Red Sea. They walked through the Red Sea. They kept camping, making camp in different places. They would walk during the day and make camp at night. And even when they were in the desert, God was still with them. He provided a pillar of cloud, a big cloud during the day, and at night it was a pillar of fire that would give them warmth and light. And as they kept moving and making camp in these different areas, one time they came to a place called Rephidim, and they made camp there. And when they had finished pitching up their tents, they realized they were out of water, and this place was so dry, there was no water anywhere. They walked around and they couldn't find any water. The people were thirsty, the animals were thirsty, and they didn't know what to do. So they went to look for Moses to ask him, "What are we going to do? This place is so dry, we need water. Why did you bring us to the desert if there's no water and we're going to die here?" And Moses was now getting stressed. He was wondering, what am I supposed to do with these people? So Moses knelt down and he prayed to God, and God told him, "Go to a certain rock, take the leaders and walk to a certain rock, and when you get there, I will tell you what to do." Now, I want you to go and grab a rock from outside, or a big stone, like the one I have here. And when you get your stone, I want you to find the smoothest part. I don't know which part of your stone is the smoothest part, but find the smoothest part, and I want you to draw a circle on it. Just like this. Like mine, I've drawn a circle on my stone. Now, there where you've drawn your circle, do you think you can make a hole, like make a big hole where you've drawn this circle? Is it possible to make a hole right now without any special instruments? No, it's not possible. You will probably need a special drill, and even if you use a knife, it will probably take you a very, very long time. And if we squeeze this rock, will anything come out of it? No, probably not. And even if we squeeze it, nothing's going to happen. But when Moses went to the rock that God had told him to go to, God told him, "Strike the rock, and I will make water come out of it." and Moses went and hit the rock, and water came out of it. And God was able to provide the water that the Israelites needed. Many times we need certain things. There are very many things that we need. We need water, we need clothes, we need food. And we usually assume that we get these things with the money, but even then, where does the money come from? Our parents work, but still, where does the money come from? And where does the job come from? So there's so many things that we need every day, whether it's at home or at school. And every day God provides for us in different ways. And we need to thank Him for providing for us. You can see how the children of Israel always had everything they needed. God gave them protection. He gave them shade during the day. He gave them warmth at night. He gave them manna in the desert. He also provided water for them. And we need to never doubt that God will always provide for us. Our message for this week says, we praise God for supplying our needs. Every time we have a need, God is always there to provide for us. He's always listening to listening to our prayers. And what are some of the ways we can never forget about what are some of the things we can do to ensure that we don't forget to thank God for providing for us? One way is to make it a habit every day, whether it's in the morning or in the evening, to pray and say thank you. Every time you pray, make sure you say thank you, even if it's for the smallest thing. The things we say thank you for, God is always grateful. He feels very happy when we always say thank you. So don't forget that God is always there to provide for our needs, and we should always say thank you for everything that He provides for us. Our PowerPoint lesson for this week is entitled Priceless. Now, for those who are older, I want you to go to a dictionary and look up the definition for two words. The words are treasure and redeem. Make sure you go to the dictionary and find the definition of redeem and treasure. Our key text is 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 18 and 19. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 18 and 19, and it says, "For you know that it is not with perishable things, such as gold and silver, that you redeemed from the empty way of life handed down to you from your ancestors, but with the precious blood of Christ, a lamb without blemish or defect." What is the most important thing to you? Is it a toy? Is it a dress, a pair of shoes? Maybe it's a book. Maybe it's your phone. Maybe it's your laptop, your iPad, your iPod, your tablet. Maybe it's your bike. There's always something that is very important to you, and you always want to make sure that you know where it is and it never gets lost, and it's always kept in good condition. What would happen if that thing that you treasure so much was taken away from you? I know most of us have heard the story of the little boy who had a boat, a small boat. I think it was a remote, those remote boats that people play with. And he took his boat and went to a pond, and he was sailing it around in the pond, and I think it got lost or something like that. And he didn't know what to do, and he thought that he had lost it forever. And then one day he was walking by a shop and he saw the boat in the shop. Apparently maybe somebody had found it and had taken it and sold it to the shopkeeper. And the boy went to the shopkeeper and told him, "This is my boat, I lost it a few days ago." And the shopkeeper told him, "Well, if you want the boat, you're going to have to pay for the boat." And the boy went and took all his money and he went and bought the boat again, even though it was his from the start. He treasured it so much he had to pay for it. He paid for it twice. We want to look at how Jesus paid a precious price for us. And I want us to look at the story he tells in Matthew chapter 13. Matthew chapter 13, verses 44 to 46. It says there are two parables. The first one is the parable of the hidden treasure. Jesus says, "The kingdom of heaven is like this. A man happens to find a treasure hidden in a field. He covers it up again and is so happy that he goes and sells everything he has and then goes back and buys that field." The second parable is the parable of the pearls. That's chapter 13, verse 45. It says, "Also, the kingdom of heaven is like this. A man is looking for fine pearls, and when he finds one that is unusually fine, he goes and sells everything he has and buys that pearl. When we look at these stories, the treasure in the field and the pearl that this man is looking for sometimes are, we can use it to show how important God is to us, that we should seek him like this very precious treasure. But we also need to understand that God also sought us as much as these people sought this precious treasure. God gave everything he had. He gave his only son to pay the price for us because he saw us as being so precious. God looked at humanity not as a waste, not as trash, but as precious things that he thought worthy enough to purchase. Our power text says, God treasures me and gave everything to save me. When you imagine how Jesus spent all that he had in order to purchase us, that means that we're very precious beings, and as precious beings we need to take care of the precious thing that God has. Our bodies are very precious. We as children of God are very precious. We should not only treat ourselves as precious things, but we should also look at other people as priceless possessions who belong to God. We should treat them as such, priceless possessions. I want to give you an assignment. I want you to go get a small piece of paper or card, and I want you to write a very nice, encouraging message telling somebody how precious they are to God. And I want you to give it to somebody when you go to church this weekend, this Sabbath. Share it with someone and share the message of how priceless we are to God. Don't forget that we are all priceless treasures, and God has given everything he has to purchase us. He shed his blood just so that he could purchase us as his sons and daughters. Our real-time lesson for the teens this week is entitled Without Judgment, the Real Issue. Last week we were looking at those some specific terms. We looked at racism, prejudice, and discrimination, and how we treat other people. Today we're going to be looking at judgment, and sometimes it is something that we do even without thinking. We end up judging people. I want you to grab somebody's shoe, whether it's your brothers, your sisters, your dads, your moms, as long as it's not yours. Grab somebody else's shoe, try it on, and walk around the room with it, and then think about how that feels. Is it comfortable? Is it easy? Did it squeeze you? Was it too big? Was it easy to walk around the room in that shoe? That is some of the things that is an illustration of what we're going to be looking at today. Our key text is Matthew 7, verses 1 to 3. It says, "Do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye?" When Jesus was on earth, he never passed judgment on anyone. He accepted everyone the way they were. He listened to what they had to say. Many times we like to look at other people and look at the problems they have and not know that we also have our own problems. We make conclusions without getting the whole idea. There's a story of 6 blind men. They were born in India. And what happened is, the 6 blind men, being born blind, they didn't know anything about the world. All they knew was either what they had heard or just their vivid imagination of what the world would look like. And they were very fascinated with the elephant because they had heard that the elephant could trample down a whole forest. They also heard that the elephant could lift very heavy loads, very heavy things. They had also heard that the king's daughter, the princess, used to ride through the kingdom on an elephant. So they were very confused, like, was this a beastly thing? Was it dangerous? Was it soft? Was it kind? Like, what exactly is an elephant? And many days they would spend a lot of time arguing. This one says, no, it's a beast. It's very dangerous. You shouldn't go near it. This one says, no, how can it be dangerous when the princess rides on it? How can it be dangerous when it can take care of the princess? I mean, why would the princess ride an elephant if it was so dangerous? And the village people got tired of hearing them arguing. So one day they decided to take the 6 men to go and see the elephant. I mean, experience the elephant. So the six blind men were taken to the king's palace so they could go and find out for themselves what an elephant was. And when they got to the palace, they got near the elephant. The first blind man, he went and touched the side of the elephant. And you know how elephant is so big. So when he touched the side of the elephant, he thought, oh, an elephant is like a wall. It's so big. And then the second blind man went and touched the trunk. And he said, oh, an elephant is like a snake. And the third blind man went and touched the tusks. And he said, oh, the elephant is sharp and deadly like a spear. And then the fourth blind man, he went and touched one of the legs. And he said, oh, the elephant is like a big cow, a very fat cow. And the fifth blind man, he went and touched the ear. And he said, oh, the elephant is like a huge fan, or maybe it's like a magic carpet. It's very flat and soft. And then the sixth blind man went and touched the tail. And he said, oh, an elephant is like an old rope. So all of them had different views of what an elephant was because they had touched different parts of the elephant. So they all sat down and they started discussing like, no, the elephant is fat. No, the elephant is like a wall. No, the elephant is like a snake. And this one said the elephant is like a rope. And the elephant is like a sharp spear. The elephant is like this and that. And they were arguing and they made so much noise that the king had woken up from his nap and he came and told them, keep quiet, you're making so much noise. All of you have a different view of the elephant, but you all touched the same elephant. You just touched different parts. If you want to know what an elephant looks like, you have to put everything together. Sometimes when we judge people, we judge them based on what we know or what we see, but we don't know the whole picture. It's not right to judge somebody and make conclusions on what we've just seen. Even the Bible says, judge not lest you be judged. I want us to read some other verses in the Bible about judgment. John chapter 7 verse 24 says, stop judging by mere appearance, but instead judge correctly. John 8 verse 15 says, you judge by human standards. I pass judgment on no one. John 12:47 says, for I do not come to judge the world, but to save the world. These are very strong texts that tell us what it means about judging somebody. You can't conclude based on one thing. You can't assume the whole picture just by one perspective. There's another story about at a certain company. A box was delivered, and on the side of the box it was written, danger, do not touch. So those who had been working during the day decided that they would not touch the box. They would just leave it wherever it is. It was actually outside. It had been delivered outside. And everyone was told, don't come near it until the manager comes. So the guy who was doing the night shift came and he saw the box and he decided he was also not going to touch it or go near it because it was written outside, do not touch, danger. So everyone was scared of the box. No one went near it. So when the store manager came in the morning, he put on his gloves and some protective gear and he went and opened the parcel, and inside he found 25 signs that said, danger, do not open. So basically, the box was just a delivery of what was on the outside was also what was on the inside. It was just signs that they were supposed to put around the factory that says, danger, do not touch. But everyone had been so scared of the box that they hadn't even opened it to find out what was wrong. And there was actually nothing wrong with it. So when we judge people, sometimes we judge them when you don't even know them. You just look at someone and you assume, oh, that person is poor, or oh, that person is not my type, or that person can't be my friend, or that person doesn't look friendly, or that person is too noisy, or that person is this and this and that. We conclude things based on what we see from a distance without even getting to know the person first. So what we're learning from here is we should not be passing judgment, because the only person who has the right to pass judgment is God. And even he doesn't pass judgment now. He will pass judgment on the resurrection day. Even the Bible says, the verse in John, that was actually Jesus speaking. He said, You judge by human standards, but I pass not judgment on anyone. If you look at the life of Jesus, he never condemned anyone. He never told anyone if they were good or bad. He accepted everyone just the way they were. That's what we're supposed to do today. We're supposed to accept everyone, pass no judgment on anyone. If you don't want to be judged, then do not judge. I want you to do the thing that I told you to do at the beginning. Put on that shoe that is not yours and walk around. There's the English saying that says, try and walk a mile in someone else's shoe. That is the only way that you'll be able to understand what someone is experiencing or what someone is made of or who they actually are. You need to take your time and get to know the person before you judge them. Just like our key text says at the very end, why do you concentrate on the sawdust that is in someone else's eye when you have a whole plank in your own eye? If you compare a plank and a sawdust, those are very different things. A sawdust is a speck, is very small, and a plank is like a long thing. That means sometimes we judge people on what we think they are when we're actually worse than what they are. So the main thing we're learning from here is do not pass judgment. If we look at our beliefs, number 24, it's about Christ's ministry in the heavenly sanctuary. It talks about how he intercedes for us. He goes and prays for us so that we cannot be judged. He removes all our blemishes and he removes judgment from us. And even if you just look at the way, like I said, we look at the way he lived on earth, he never passed judgment on everyone. And even now when he's in heaven, in the sanctuary, he's praying on our behalf. He's removing judgment on our behalf because he doesn't want us to be judged. He is the only one who can pass judgment, and he will pass judgment only once, and that is on the resurrection. So please remember, do not pass judgment on anyone. Judge not, lest you be judged. Thank you so much for joining us today. Make sure you share, subscribe, invite other people to come and watch again, and make sure to come back next week. And until next time, God bless you.